Has music ever broken your heart? No, only people have. I think we all go through this period of like there's like a sense of disappointment that comes from like wondering like if you had it or you could have made it. Welcome to the 50th episode of Love's Music. On today's show, I turn the tables on myself. I answer the questions that I usually ask my guests, plus a couple that I got from the audience. I hope you like it. If you do, send me your feedback, your comments, hit subscribe, and please tell somebody who loves music. All right, so let's get into it. First question, tell me about your musical background. So I was probably the most active between 2008 and say 2013. I was doing an album a year. I was in the hip hop space, but I kind of transitioned into like an alt rock sound. I loved Gym Class Heroes. I was super into Linkin Park. I remember I heard Ain't No Rest for the Wicked by Cage the Elephant when he was kind of like rapping with like the dingy alt rock sounds. And I was like, this is it. So if you listen to my albums from like Derelict Diaries to Arena Rap to like 20 something, you can see like the rock starting to kind of infiltrate it. And then I wasn't even rapping anymore by like my like fourth or fifth album. I mean, all the albums are on Spotify, Apple Music if you're interested. They're fine. They're good if you want to check them out, you can go listen to them. What was your experience like when you were at your peak? What type of music venues, cities, etc.? What I would do is I would do an album and then I would book a small show. I'd do like my record release. I had no idea how to promote a project. I would probably spend anywhere from 7, 8 months in the studio, same studio for all my albums. I would do a small show at say like a Finnegan's Wake or like a Whiskey Tango. If you're in the Philadelphia area or like in the counties around it, like you know these spots. My biggest and best show was probably I opened for Bubba Sparks at Whiskey Tango. And that was the best example of, all right, this is what it looks like when everything goes right. The place was packed. I had like a whole bunch of people from my high school, like a whole bunch of people from the neighborhood. That was probably like my biggest and best show. But I might have done a total of maybe 25, 30 shows over the course of like 5 years. And they were all like small venues around like Philadelphia area. Some of my best shows were like small dive bars with like 60, 70 people in them. But like the small places get packed out and it makes for like an unforgettable experience. Those are some of my best shows actually. Take me through your earliest memory of music. Wow. I remember my earliest memories of music. I'm thinking like in the car seat of my mom's Escort. And like my dad was always a musician, so like the first music was always like my family's music, like R&B, funk, soul, Stevie Wonder. I remember hearing like the Alvin and the Chipmunks on like a small little record player in my grandmom's basement. I remember my 6th or 5th grade class. I think it was like 5th grade. I was already kind of into Broadway a little bit. Like I used to watch like Annie at my grandmom's house, and I liked kind of like that Broadway sound. And our school took us to see Les Miserables at in the Forest Theater in Philadelphia. And I remember really liking the music. I thought it was really cool. And then I think the only other early memory I have of music was my grandmom. We had like a free library where you could rent videos, and my grandmom had the Yellow Submarine. And I remember like I have vivid memories like in my living room with my grandma watching the Yellow Submarine. That was like the coolest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And that was like my earliest memory. At what point did you realize you were more than just a passive listener and you truly love music? I knew that I understood music. As soon as I could read and write, I could understand song structure. I knew that there was like a chorus that you repeated. I knew that you told the story in 8 bars or 16. And I remember as a way to try to connect with my dad, who was already a musician, there's like some notebooks that my mom still has when I'm like, I mean, I'm just learning cursive and I'm like writing songs. And the songs are like separated into like sections. Like here's a first, like verse 1 and then verse 2. And they're structured songs. They're not great songs, but they're like I clearly understood how to write a song as soon as I could read. Who were your earliest influences? So music wasn't really mine. It didn't feel like it was like my thing until maybe 11 or 12. So it was basically just my parents' music. And then, I mean, I'm coming into like early 90s. So I would say like the first music that really like caught me was obviously hip hop. Everybody's listening to grunge or hip hop. I gravitated towards hip hop. Like first Naughty by Nature album, Tribe Called Quest, Nas. I remember hearing Doggy Style with one of my cousins and being like, this is the coolest thing I ever heard in my entire life. Early Wu-Tang albums. I had a thing for classic rock pretty early on. I had a buddy who lived next door whose dad had a great record collection. I remember in the span of about a week, we listened to like the Beatles, Zeppelin, Oasis, Hendrix, and I basically got like a baptism of like just all this classic rock when I was like probably 11 or 12. And after that, I was just like, whatever this is, like I just have to make this stuff. How did your love of music initially manifest? Singing, songwriting, was it an instrument, dance? It wasn't until probably senior year of high school I actually like really started to like take note of music and being like I could do something with it. I always just kind of did it for fun. And then all my friends were 2 years older than me. So they were already on. So I kind of linked up with these guys that were like in my grade in like 11th and 12th grade because all my friends had kind of moved on. And we would just kind of just do freestyles and record them with like, we had like a boombox with like a little mic in it. And we all crowd around like the little speaker and like rap into it with like instrumentals playing behind us. Like we weren't even like in studios yet. But somehow the mixtapes that we made, like they weren't bad. They weren't good, but they weren't bad. And so like we had this little community. We'd battle each other, write songs, making fun of each other. But like you would go to like the local store, like the Wawa. We have Wawas in Philadelphia. So you go to Wawa and somebody would pull up, a car would pull up like hearing like one of our mixtapes, like playing. And I was like, yo, this is like a thing. We could like do this as a thing. And so that was probably the first time. There's probably 4 or 5 CDs floating around that we tried to make. There's still just mixtapes over industry beats. And then I had like a huge hiatus. And then I didn't take it serious again until probably my late 20s when I basically compiled everything I made into like, all right, I'm actually going to try to make an album. And that was probably like late 20s. I linked up with a guy who actually had a studio in the neighborhood. Can you describe the process where you took the raw talent and emotion that you had for music and turned it into a consumable brand? How long was this process? So all by chance, really good friend of mine was in a poker game with a guy named Mark. Mark was running the studio in North Hills called Forge Promotions, big $1 million+ studio, recorded Grammy winners. They'd never met again for this card game ever again. It was like a one chance happening. One of my mixtapes was in the car. My buddy Brian, he had the mixtape in the car, played it for Mark. He's like, this is good. I was like, you should come over to the studio and like just record songs. At this point, I was already pretty much done. I was just making mixtapes for fun with a buddy named Pete. Just like whenever we had like some time free, we just really record some songs, record verses, literally just as like an exercise, like never expected to do anything with it. Started recording with Mark, linked up with my engineer named Mike Burchard. He's actually in a band Split Decision, plays keys, sings, records for everybody, just an incredible engineer. We recorded 1 or 2 songs that went with this mixtape that were a little bit more radio friendly, because at this point, all my songs were about drugs and girls and partying. I basically polished up whatever songs were like presentable, plus a few more songs, kind of scotch taped together. And that was my first album, Derelict Diaries, which I put out when I was 28-ish, maybe. And the same thing too. Like I put out the album. They were like, "Hey man, you want to perform at this thing?" Not knowing how to do anything. I was too dumb to know I was supposed to be scared. So I was like, "Yeah, sure." Just got up, did a couple songs, gave the DJ my TV tracks, and just started doing shows like in my late 20s just to see if I could. How do you view success now versus how you viewed it when you were younger? When you start out and you're young, you always have that false optimism, right? This uninformed optimism. You're sitting there in a band with your buddies in the garage and you're like, we're gonna change the world. And then you get like a dose of reality and you're like, I better get a real job. No, but for me I was always kind of fascinated with the idea that like you could actually just make a living just doing music, right? Like I thought you either had to be a star or you're just a broke musician until someone discovered you and made you a star, right? And then as I got older, I would realize like there's guys that make 100 grand a year doing music, 70 grand a year doing music. And I was like, that's actually not a bad trajectory. What I actually learned that the amount of work that it takes to make 60, 70 grand a year doing music, like when you're first starting out, is way more than it takes to say, go sell cars or go be a manager at a retail store. So that's why I think the goal, that's why I think that as a goal never really materializes, right? Like you don't really start doing music so you can make 75 grand a year. Like you do it because you can have this like mass appeal and touch a whole bunch of lives or be a star or whatever. So for the longest time, I was like, what if I just made it that far? I was like, maybe I'll just do like small venues. But like I said, it never materializes. Like the way to get to be able to do a bunch of small venues is the same infrastructure it takes to become a star, which is volume, reps, a bunch of time, a bunch of investment. And if you're gonna just try to make 80 to 100 grand a year, go sell cars. Go sit at a car lot and just work ups, or any kind of sales, pretty much. If the you today could tell the younger you one thing, what would it be? I still wasn't sure how I was going to answer this question. I would say treat art like art and treat business like business. I wasted so much time trying to kind of blend the two, and I was really unproductive. And what I mean by that is the whole point of art is to make the coolest thing you can possibly make. Like you're literally trying to make your favorite song, the song that you really like. Like what makes you an artist is your taste. You have great taste. You can hear something, you can kind of make something, right? You can kind of get an idea from your head onto a paper or onto a tape or onto a computer, whatever. And so you kind of got to trust your taste. The minute you're like, all right, I'm going to make this song that's going to be the hit, or this is going to be the song that I push. Every time I tried to do that, it was the worst song on my album. And I mean, it wasn't even close. I'd have like 8 or 9 kind of cohesive songs that were interesting, maybe a different, varied levels of quality. But I'd have like the 1 or 2 just out of place songs. And it was like, oh, you tried to make a dancey track because you thought you'd try to get a song on the radio. So just treat art like art. When it comes time to make cool stuff, make the coolest, most authentic stuff you can make. And when it's time to do business stuff, actually treat it like business. At the end of the day, it really is business. Well, you got to make a thing. You got to get people to know about the thing. You got to sell the thing. Then you got to deliver the thing, right? So when you're doing any of those steps from like a business perspective, like be all in on the business side. Like I wasted so many times at tables with people like, hey, we're going to talk about the next show we're going to put together and this move we're going to all try to make together. And it really was just a bunch of dudes hanging out talking about music and nothing happened, right? So if you're really going to be serious about the business side of it, educate yourself, learn all the various facets of the business. And when you are doing like a business thing and you're going to dedicate a piece of time to doing something professional, be a pro. Actually, a good book I want to recommend, Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. If you're going to do anything creative, I recommend that as a 1-2 punch: The War of Art and Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield. What would you tell a young musician starting out today? If it was just a musician, young man or young woman, late teens, early 20s, looking to start out, I would say learn to count the cost of your dream. And what that means is a lot of people like making music with their friends and like doing shows at the bar around the corner, and it feels really good. And if you like doing that, great. You should continue to do that and make music with your friends. If you do want to kind of turn the page and become a professional musician, I think before you even start, it actually count the cost of your dream. You're talking about a 6 to 7 year, maybe a 5-year marathon. You're talking about paperwork. You're talking about expenses. You're talking about a budget. You're talking about assembling a team. You're talking about a whole bunch of things that have nothing to do with creativity. And if you can factor all that into the equation and know that it's going to take an exorbitant amount of time, and you're going to get your teeth kicked in for several years, and you're going to look like you're out of your mind, and you're going to have to keep going through all that despite all the odds stacked against you, and you really want to still chase this dream, then go at it with all your heart. But count the cost of your dream, because deep down, you may just want to just make music with your friends. And if that's the case, get a full-time job and make music with your friends. I mean, the best times of my life were in a studio with my guy eating cold pizza and just trying to like tinker through some music, Like I would have just done that. Like the idea that I was gonna try to chase some degree of stardom or anything, completely unnecessary. Just hanging out with my guys and putting songs together was a ball. And I wish I would have went into it with the mindset like, look, I'm not gonna invest thousands of dollars or a bunch of hours and try to do these mega shows. Like what I really like doing is just making music with my friends. Go get your full-time job, get your education, take care of like the life stuff, and just go make music with your friends, And if you do want to chase a dream after knowing that all that's entailed, you have my full support and blessing. So which project are you the most proud of? Ooh, my second to last album, Songs About Girls, is my favorite project of mine. I think it's the most accurate snapshot of who I was at that time. It sounds like the music of that time too. Like I think that album was all. I think I recorded all those songs in like the spring summer of 2014. So like all that cool alt rock music that was out. I was listening to a lot of Tame Impala, Cage the Elephant. So I had like a lot of like the 50s, 60s drums, and the last couple of hip hop verses like I actually wrote were probably on that album before I like just didn't rap anymore. I think my favorite verse is on a song called Rolling Rock. I say, I got a fetish for big beards and babes with blonde hair, sleeping in Sundays, chuckers and nice gear. I go psycho for ice cold pints here, so toast the good girls that have bad ideas. Cheers, salute, mazel tov, right here, my dude, it's popping off. The party is where my army is, so pardon the retarded partiers in my apartment, miss. Like that was like my favorite. That's probably like my favorite verse before I just didn't even rap anymore. But like that album is like just like a really special project. So Songs About Girls is probably that's like my favorite joint. What is something that you're proud of that has nothing to do with music? I think I'm a decent writer. I published a book like in like the personal growth space. It was more like it was probably 50% biographical, 50% kind of like what I learned along the way of like turning 40. But like if anybody was like you had to pick one creative endeavor to do for the next like quarter century, like for the rest of your life, I'd have been like, just give me a book deal. Give me one check and I'll crank out a book every year. Like that's like my dream. I would say if not music, podcast, and anything like that, I'm like proud of my ability to write. Has music ever broken your heart? No, only people have. um, I think we all go through this period of like there's like a sense of disappointment that comes from like wondering like if you had it or you could have made it. So like once you kind of get bummed out and you're like, I'm kind of done with the whole music thing, you kind of find a place where you can kind of like celebrate what you did. Like I like listening to my albums and they kind of really take me back to the fun times I had. And I also know that memories are subjective. Like I only remember my like best performances and my best songs. So it's easy to like kind of romanticize and think, oh yeah, I could have made it. I could have been the guy if I just kept going a little longer. Fact is, I didn't even do enough work. When you realize how much work it actually takes to make it, I didn't even do enough work to make a fair assumption about whether or not I could have made it. You know, I mean, I basically did what everybody did at my level, and none of us broke through. So who knows? Who knows? But what breaks my heart is people coming up with like that, like we were talking about, like that, like false optimism, you know, or like that uninformed optimism, and like they're just gonna get the rug pulled out from under when they realize like how hard it is, or like that first heartbreak. Like when I see people starting out and getting discouraged like that, I actually feel that, you know, because we've all been there. So that's what kind of like hurts me. But I don't know. I think I have a cool collection of work. Yeah, I'm not really like bitter about it or anything. What do you love most about music currently? I think the hard rock space is doing probably the most interesting stuff to me. The black faces, the female faces that are putting out these incredible projects. I think what happened was Sleep Token kind of roped in like casual metal fans, and then it kind of shed the light on all these other little projects that were coming on, like Magnolia Park, Poppy, House of Protection, Fearson, Eka Vandal, Rivals, like all these other like cool bands that I never would have found if I wasn't listening to like Sleep Token like nonstop last year. I think that's what excites me the most. I think the biggest band in the world is going to be The Warning, who's like three Mexican sisters, who are absolute killers. So that's probably the most exciting thing to me right now. Who are your bands? This is actually funny. I always talk about the difference between, because everybody's obsessed with like the countdowns or like the lists, top five this, top five all time, whatever. I always say there's like the list, and then there's just my bands. There's like the greatest bands of all time that you can kind of dispute, and then there's bands that are just mine. They're coming to town, take my money. I don't care what it costs. If you're within a 2-hour drive, I'm gonna come see you. And that's a very short list. But these are like my bands. Like, don't go like run and go download all their stuff. You might not like them as much as I do. They're just bands that I heard. I'm like, I just love everything they do. Some are more universally loved, and some are just mine. Like for instance, all right, so there's my bands, and then there's like my bands today, right? So just like my general, like my favorite bands, like the Neighborhood's like my like 101. I heard Female Robbery when I was, sheesh, 2012. I heard Female Robbery on like XM36. I mean, I think I was like in the parking lot of like a grocery store. Like my life just changed. I was like, I don't know what they're doing with the music. I don't know why it sounds like this. It was the coolest thing I ever heard in my life. And then I saw the video for Sweater Weather, the black and white, everything. I was like, The Neighborhood's just the best band I ever heard. And I literally like everything they've come out with since. Seen them 7 times, 8 times maybe. Royal Blood, almost the same. Royal Blood's like I think like the dopest band ever. Queens of the Stone Age. I mean, everybody loves Queens of the Stone Age, but like anything Josh Homme does is great. Dr. Dog, Philly guys. I heard Be the Void in 2013 or 14, and I was like, how does this band have 5 albums? I've never heard of them, and they're from my city. But yeah, Dr. Dog is huge catalog, incredible band, mostly a touring band. Don't have a ton of videos or anything. Kings of Leon's like my go-to. I heard Sex on Fire 2 years before Only by Night came out on CD. And I was like, this is the coolest song I ever heard. I forgot about it. Then the album came out. And then they've been like my favorite band ever since. That's like my era, like 2000, like that alternative from like 2011 to 2014. 21 Pilots is close. Cage of Elephants right there. My Morning Jacket's there. That's like my bands. Now today, my like take my money bands, like today, these up and comers that are like on my radar, that have like real estate in my heart. I just saw Noga Erez at the TLA. Might have been the best small venue show other than The Warning that I've seen in years. Smashed it. I mean, like every song, I only knew like half the catalog, and every song was good. Like Noga Erez is like it right now. She comes anywhere within like a 3-hour drive, I'm going. Magnolia Parks, they're my guys. The Warning, Fearson, Eka Vandal, who I absolutely love. She has a song with like Fred Durst, awesome. There's this guy I actually interviewed on episode 26, Mark Ramos. The band's called Morning Wars. I don't even know what he was doing on my show. I think he's like the best artist to come out of 2025. And his album Prospect Gallery, front to back, is an absolute masterpiece. Like I wouldn't even be surprised if in the next 2 years I just saw him on TV and he was like winning a Grammy. Like he's that good. So Morning Wars. If you take anything away from this, listen to Prospect Gallery front to back. And shout out Mark Ramos if you're watching this. And if you want to check out our interview, it's actually episode 26 of Love Music. What was the last song that made you cry? This was Joy Odolakun, I'd Miss the Birds. I'm driving, long drive by myself, just like in my like feeling sorry, lonely bag, a little isolated. And this song comes on about her leaving Nashville, how it really wasn't her place, and like it's just time to move on and change. And it just triggered something in me. And I'm like by the first chorus, it was just waterworks. Another incredible artist. But yeah, that's the last song that like got me going. If you were to get in your car right now, what's playing? I'm on a Marcus King kick right now. His album Youngblood is incredible, but I think I'm actually halfway through the new Gnarls Barkley album. I think if you picked up my phone right now, I think I was just listening to Gnarls Barkley. He just came out with an album this Friday. Well, I'm a big CeeLo Green fan, so. What can your fans expect from you in the next 1 to 3 years? My fans, wow. I don't know. I mean, I like to just keep making episodes, but who knows? If you want to know what to expect from me, I would say don't set your expectations very high. All right. Keep modest expectations. Hopefully just more good episodes, to be honest. Maybe a book, you know? I mean, like I said, I like writing. Maybe I'll put out a book. Why do you think podcasting has gotten so big? I think it's not that podcasting got big. I think there's always been a desire for people to share their stories. I think finally the technology just caught up to the demand, where people actually had the cameras and the software and the microphones to actually, somebody who's not very technologically savvy can actually sit down with like a laptop and a mic and actually like stream, an interview or a episode fairly easily and fairly inexpensively. So I think people have always wanted to do things like this. I think it just became easy enough for the layman to do it. I do think that there is an element of loneliness that it addresses by having like a platform to just kind of talk and feel like somebody's listening, or to be able to invite people on. Like I'll be the first to admit that this addresses like an element of loneliness for me as somebody who like was in the music community that still kind of wishes they could be close to it, but don't really play an instrument or do anything anymore. So it's like, okay, a way to still kind of like warm my hands on the fire of music. I can still like talk to musicians. And if I can provide another piece of content for them or promote a show, or if my show leads to them selling a little bit more merch, like great. But overall, I think the technology just finally caught up to the demand for it. If anybody can have a podcast, they'll at least try it. Where do you see music headed in the next year or so? If you would have asked me this question 6 months ago, I would think metal was about to have like a huge resurgence, like hard rock, metal, a little bit of punk, maybe. Now, I have a weird feeling like I'm seeing like a lot of like almost like frat rap kind of pop up, like early Mac Miller, not prime Mac Miller, like early Mac Miller, Asher Roth, Swayze, like people just doing like fun, feel good like hip hop, but it's like good though, like Nick D, Connor Price. There's a guy I interviewed, McGowan, episode 26, young dude, crazy talented. And I was like, I don't know. I think this might be where music's headed. Like his stuff is so good. And it just sounds real current. Like it's what a lot of other people are doing. So if I had to guess, that's probably where music's headed. Actually, the McGowan episode, that was actually episode 24. What is something that you do well? And what is a skill that you'd like to refine? I'd like to think that at this stage of my life, I become somebody who people can count on. When I say I'm going to do something, you can pretty much take it to the bank. Like if I say I'm going to do something for you, you can just forget about it. You might as well just consider it done. And I think that I've strived to be that kind of person. So, I mean, if that counts as something you do well, that's probably like my biggest virtue that I try to kind of adhere to. And then something I wish I could change. I think I have an unrealistic or unhealthy perspective on time. Like I always feel like I'm running out or it's too late or I'm going to miss the next chance or things have to happen now or I'm like impatient. Whatever that flaw or imperfection or character trait is, I'd like wish I could like address it somehow. Cause I think it leads to a lot of anxiety, conflicts. I mean, it like tarnishes relationships. Cause I always feel like I gotta be getting something done, or if something's not happening like the right way, like this is the only time we'll be able to do this. So we have to, it's like a lot of undue pressure, I think. So that'd be something I wish I could get a little bit better at. What is the best compliment you have ever received? I think when anybody says anything that compares me to my dad, I get like real warm inside. Like that's like my dad's like the guy. If there was like a handbook on like how you're supposed to treat people, the planet, how you're supposed to just approach life, you literally just like watch my dad. I'm like, oh, that's how you do life correctly. Like that's how I feel about my dad. So whenever somebody says like, oh, you remind me of your man, you remind me of Jimmy, man, you remind me of your dad. I'm like, so that's like the best compliment. Musically, I'll tell you guys a story. I was sitting there with my buddy at the Elbow Room, and we're all lit up. You know, it's like, I mean, we're like closing the bar, tossed up. And he's talking to me about me and my brother. Now, this is a friend that's done music with both me and my brother, right? So he's familiar with like both of our catalogs. And he looks at me and he's like, I don't know, man. Like your brother, he like sings better, and a lot of his songs are better. And I'm like, is there a compliment coming? Or and he looks at me and he goes, but your joints, man, I can like smell your joints. And like that for somebody like me who like writes for a moment, who tries to like capture moments like in a song, that's like a huge compliment to me. There's people that can rap, sing, arrange songs better, but like one thing that I think I want my music to be able to do is like take you from where you're at and like put you in that room at the Elbow Room on October with the sticky floor, with ZZ Top on the jukebox, with the Jameson in your one hand and a Rolling Rock in the other, and put you right in that room in 2011 and like put you there. You know, it's just a feeling, you know? And I think that's what I try to do with my music. Now, I never expected to do anything with it, but I just wanted to tell an accurate story. So like that was actually like a huge compliment, even though I don't know if that's how he meant it. What are your favorite takeaways from your episodes? So many. I'm gonna have to shout out Ali McGuire on this one. She, just to give you a little bit of background, she was a artist. She was an engineer, artist now. She actually has a hip hop album out now. She was an engineer, been to the mountaintop, engineered platinum albums, was actually doing the sound for Post Malone, just has seen it all, like did recording in LA and everything. And she says, a lot of people, they know the what. They know they want the Grammy, they want the hit songs, they want the accolades, they want the riches. And they say, this is what I want, and I'm willing to do it at all costs. And she says, be careful with the at all costs. You know, a lot of people don't consider the how. How do you want to do it? Well, how do you want to make music? Like, what kind of people do you want to make music with? What kind of environment do you want to be in with your music? The idea that you're going to sacrifice all your like mental health, your sleep, your physical health for this dream, you're just going to burn out. The trick is to consider what you want that journey to look like and make steps, not just like business steps, but like for yourself, like to actually preserve your health and the quality of your mental state. In all the times I've been doing this, I've never heard anybody speak so profoundly about that topic. I mean, she said it way more eloquently than I ever could, but that was probably like my favorite takeaway. I even apply it to myself. Like if all I did was change that part of my like music story, I even think I would have been way further. If all I did was consider like the people, the environment, all that. So shout out Ali McGuire, crazy talented individual. What's one thing you would want listeners to take away from this interview? Well, I guess just due to my experience, I think I let a lot of my cynicism get to me. Maybe it's because I'm old. Maybe just because I've seen so much. But I want to speak specifically to the dreamers out there. And as much as I talk about being practical and the steps and the time it takes and whatever, still keep dreaming. Don't be afraid to be illogical and unreasonable, right? I mean, the price of this game is you have to look like a crazy person while the people you love and respect are calling you a crazy person. You have to buck against conventional wisdom for probably years, things that don't make sense, because the whole point of this thing is you want to be right and you want to be early. You want to have this cool, new, exciting sound and you want to have it first. And you don't get there by like being careful and taking small steps. You got to take big, huge swings and look like you're out of your mind. And everyone's going to call you out of your mind until that one of those swings hits. And now you're ahead of your time. So they're going to call you crazy right up until they call you a genius. Another way to put it is you have to be loud, right? Because if you want to do this at a professional level, you have to have a compelling reason for an audience that's big enough to support you to say, yes, we want to buy in. We want you. I mean, you really are just committed to this very finite lane and this really cool thing you're making. Like I said, and when everybody's telling you it's not going to happen or you're out of your mind for doing this, eventually there's going to be these small whispers. And these small whispers are going to be your people being like, oh, whoa, he's not crazy. That's our guy. That's our guy. And from that small contingent of people, it just goes like this. And that's what you're banking on. And that's I think, the best way to summarize this game. I didn't even scratch the surface of like fame or notoriety. But I'll tell you what, I had some rooms and there was a small group of people that I would look over and be like, and I'm like, those are my people. And they felt like I was their guy. And that was enough. That was enough for me. And it's kind of happening now with this little silly show I got. The comments, the feedback, it means more than you know, because podcasting is an awful investment. You got to do it because you love it and because it's fun. Otherwise, don't do it. And so when I get feedback and people are like, yo, man, I love that episode with such and such, and they're like quoting things back that I said, that's validation that I'm not a crazy person. Like we need that, that's what we're doing this for. And it's cool. And for every one of you that comments, that watches, that either hits like or, shares it with somebody, that means more to me than you will ever know. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. If you listened this long, I hope you enjoyed it. Send me your comments, send me your feedback. And if you really dug it, please tell somebody who loves music. Take care of yourself.